right, thank you so much, Brittany. Hello, everyone. My name is Joanna Robotham, and I am the curator of modern and contemporary art at the Tampa Museum of Art. And it is my pleasure to introduce you today to Branko van Oppen, who is a distinguished scholar, and we are very pleased that this is the first of several lectures that he is presenting this fall for our audiences virtually. I'm going to casually refer to him as Branko because I now feel like Branko is an old friend of mine. Today's lecture, of course, is focused on the contemporary artist Nikos Stratakis, Antiquity Today. And on October 18th, Branko will be joining us again on a lecture, presenting a lecture on the Noble Collection of Attic Vases. And then again on November 15th on Minoan Gnosis, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, and the Labyrinth of the Minotaur. And I believe actually this is the first Antiquity Circle lecture that we've had this year. I think the last one we had was perhaps again Branko speaking to us last fall on Roman Egyptian mummy portraits. You may have recalled that really brilliant lecture that Branko gave. For those of you who have just joined us and missed some of the slideshow, let me give you a little bit of a brief background on Branko. Dr. van Oppen is an ancient historian who specialized in the queenship during the period of Alexander the Great to Cleopatra. He received his PhD from the City University of New York, where he studied under Sarah Pomeroy. As I mentioned, he is currently based in the Netherlands, and he worked for over 5 years at the Allard Pierson Museum, which holds the archaeological collection of the University of Amsterdam. I'm not going to go too long into Branko's background because we want to hear from our guest speaker today. And I know that he has a very special guest joining him as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Branko. Branko, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, Joanna. I'm very happy to join you and thank you for your kind words.
Excellent. And just a reminder, Branko, if we have some questions during your talk, I might interrupt you and we'll answer those questions while you're speaking, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Any kind of question will be very welcome. If it's just to clarify a detail or to repeat something that is unclear, and then for more substantial questions, we will have time at the end.
Fantastic. Well, great. Well, Branko, why don't we get started? With that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joanna, and welcome everyone. Hello. Before I begin my talk, actually, I am truly delighted to first give the floor, so to say, to Nikos Stratakis himself, the honorary subject of today's webinar. Nikos joins us actually from Greece, which is 7 time zones away from Florida. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my very great pleasure to present to you the eminent contemporary Greek painter Nikos Stratakis. To you now. Over to you, Nikos.
Hello. Hello, Branko. I'm very proud to be there with you. And I would like to say a few words. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nikos Stratakis. First, I would like to thank the Tampa Museum of Art and Dr. Van Oppen for the great honor. This lecture is a great joy and privilege for me as a Greek artist. Also, I would like to thank the attendees of this lecture for their interest. I would like to point out the progressive spirit Dr. Van Oppen has, as he saw beyond the classical style and subjects of my works, as he found out their ties with contemporary art. I hope and I wish to fulfill my goals and expectations as an artist. Thank you very much.
Did you listen to us?
Thank you very much, Nikos. That was a very kind little address. And if you want, unmute your microphone and also turn your video off. Brittany, we can start if you wish with the slideshow. Again, hello, and thank you all for joining us today. In this Antiquity Circle webinar, I would like to pitch a proposal to you for an exhibition centered around the work of contemporary Greek artist Nikos Stratakis, who you have just seen a minute ago. Before I begin though, I also want to thank the team at the TMA for their support and assistance providing background information and images while I am working here from home across the Atlantic, 6 time zones away from Florida. I also want to extend my warmest gratitude again to Nico himself and to his wife Pippi for their enthusiasm, for all the information, images and suggestions with which they have overwhelmed me. And I mean that, of course, in a very good way. I'm delighted that they are both joining us here today from the beautiful island of Corfu in Greece. So today's lecture offers a fresh recontextualization of the Antiquities collection of the Tampa Museum of Art by drawing on a choice of Stratakis paintings paired with early modern classicizing sculpture from an esteemed Dutch museum. My talk is intended as a concept for an exhibition that could travel to Greece as well as to the Netherlands. The presentation has 3 main sections, beginning first with a selection of Stratakis paintings, followed by some relevant objects from the TMA's collection, and then a proposal of Renaissance through neoclassical masterpieces to illustrate the reception of ancient art over the centuries. If, again, during this talk you have any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand function. You may write questions in the comments or the chat, whether you're joining us from Facebook or here in this Zoom webinar. And if you wish, you can be unmuted and speak instead of writing comments in the chat. There may be room for more substantial questions at the end of the presentation. Remember, we are always very interested in what you think, and this webinar is explicitly designed to invite your input. There will also be a survey. We very much welcome if you'd fill it out. But let us begin. Nikos Stratakis is a renowned Greek painter born on the island of Crete in the city of Heraklion, which, as some of you may know, is the sister city of Tampa, Florida. Stratakis has studied at Athens School of Fine Arts and began his career as a set designer. His career as a painter flourished since the 1990s and is richly imbued with the continuing relevance and inspiration of antiquity, ancient mythology, and archaeology. His paintings are held by Greek museums, the Greek Ministry of Culture, as well as prominent private collections in Greece and internationally. In fact, one of the paintings that I'll show you today made its way all the way to Florida. Incidentally, you see Nikos here with one of his staunch supporters, Leonidas Kavakos, the internationally renowned violinist, at an Athenian gallery presentation a few years ago. Stratakis' work presents various recurring themes that convey his fascination with ancient Greek culture. These themes range from figures of ancient religion and mythology, such as Aphrodite and Apollo, and you will see a few more later on, archaeological landscapes, for instance, Athens or Delos, as well as male and female nudes that are profoundly indebted to the classical tradition. Still, while the ancient inspiration will be immediately clear to you from the first impression, a more attentive observer will also find allusions and reappropriations not only of classical works of art, but also of modern neoclassical paintings. A perfect and obvious example of the continuing relevance of ancient archaeology as a source of artistic inspiration is found in Stratakis' 1996 Ancient Agora, which, I have to say, looks almost like a painting from the Dutch Golden Age. From the Agora, or public square here in front, the Panathenaic Way makes its way along the colonnaded portico, or stoa, towards the famous Acropolis, the site of the Parthenon, among many other structures. Notice how the absence of human figures adds to the timelessness of the scene. No hustle or bustle of tourists, pilgrims, or other pedestrians. The figure in front here, most of you may well recognize as the famous Discobolus, or discus thrower. But this is neither the bronze statue of the mid-5th century Athenian sculptor Myron or a Roman marble copy. Stratakis portrays an actual athlete in this painting, tirelessly competing in the ruins of ancient Olympia. He thus continues to practice the Olympic ideal of peaceful competition based on the preservation of human dignity. The Cycladic island of Delos is sacred to Apollo and Artemis, the twin children of Leto. In this recent work, Stratakis has rearranged some of the ancient structures and monuments of Delos, including the Terrace of the Lions, which you see to your left along the Sacred Way, the Roman Temple of Isis in the background here, and in front the statue of the Delian Cleopatra, the wife of Dioscurides, an Athenian couple residing on the island of Delos in the 2nd century before the Common Era. In other words, just to be clear, this headless statue is not the famous Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, about whom we will speak a little more in a while. From archaeological landscapes, we move to divine inspiration. First is tetraptych, featuring from left to right Apollo, an adorant or praying boy, Dionysus, and Hermes. 3 of the most important gods of the Olympian pantheon, in other words, and one of their worshippers. These images are not only inspired by ancient Greco-Roman sculpture, they are also imbued with a profound understanding of Greek religion and its reception. Take Hermes, for instance, which Stratakis here transforms from Hermes' chthonic, that is earthly origin, to the alchemist and esoteric Trismegistos, that means the greatest, the thrice greatest god of the religious philosophy known as Hermeticism that was popularized in the early modern period. This transformation is evident in the golden sword Hermes holds in his hand instead of his usual caduceus or Heraklion, that is his herald's staff. As messenger of the gods and guide of the dead to the underworld, from clever trickster to protector of travelers and thieves, merchants and orators, Hermes' mercurial nature made him a perfect mystic figure for prophetic adoption into Christian theology. Aphrodite, or Venus, as she was known to the Romans, is a continuing inspiration for Stratakis and for many other artists before or since. Here you see 2, let's say, imaginary works of antiquity that no longer survive. One is an imagination by Stratakis of Aphrodite that could have been seen in a bathhouse. The poster is inspired by the so-called Anagyomene type that refers to the goddess wringing out her hair after her bath, or if you remember the Botticelli, after she came out of the ocean. The other painting is an artist's impression of a lost statue, a statue that is actually known, called the Aphrodite of the Gardens, that is only written about in literature. It's attributed to one Alcamenes, a younger contemporary of the famous sculptor Phidias, so that means late 5th century before the Common Era. The sculpture was considered to be one of the most important classical works of Athenian art. Stratakis based his interpretation on a statue of Venus that was discovered in the late 19th century on the Esquiline Hill in Rome, and is therefore called the Esquiline Venus. I could give a whole lecture about this painting alone, or about some of Stratakis' other paintings, by the way. This is a 2-dimensional reflection of the famous Hellenistic sculpture that I'll show you later, known as the Barberini faun. Satyrs or fauns are words, those are words that are equivalent for mythic beings of the woods, particularly with horse or goat-shaped bodies. Instead of a rock, Stratakis' satyr is here resting his right leg on a classical Corinthian capital, while his left hand leans on a traditional, though not ancient, string instrument called the Pontic lyre, which is from northern Anatolia in present-day Turkey. Also notice that Stratakis has indicated the most significant early modern restorations on the right leg and the left arm by painting them with a little less detail. There are many other details that are of great interest in this painting, but to be short, the painter has modernized the subject with added references to classical and traditional Greek art and culture. Three men, their bodies scarred from years of physical exertion, are shown here at rest. Who are they? Are they athletes or wrestlers? Are they soldiers or gladiators? They are enveloped in a color known as rouge de Mars, that is French for red of Mars, a pigment made from hematite or ferric oxide. And the men, they are Ares, Deimos, and Phobos, respectively the divine personifications of war, terror, and fear. But notice the helmet and the guns in the lower left corner, dating to the First World War. These are sad reminders of the sheer endlessness of war and violence that men inflict upon their kind. The harem or harem is a seemingly boundless source of many a man's flights of fancy. The word refers to a secluded space for women, mostly in Near and Middle Eastern cultures. In ancient times, the great king of Persia is said to have held 360 concubines in addition to his own wives, plural, and daughters kept in separate women's quarters. 19th century European Orientalist artists painted fantastic pictures of seductive women waiting patiently for their master to dominate them. In Stratakis' reimagination of the harem, the place is populated by women and an occasional man, boy, or even child of various shades of ethnicity and in various states of undress. The harmonic composition in 3 levels with geometric shapes and curving lines is classical, as are many of the poses of the human figures. But the composition is therefore not dizzyingly romantic, as many of the Orientalist paintings, of course, were. Another painting that I could give a whole lecture on is this painting that is a clever reworking of The Death of Cleopatra from 1874 by French painter Jean-André Rixens. But here, seated before the queen's bed, is a physician in the right corner. And indeed, that is the person who commissioned this work. He is wearing early 20th century doctor's outfit. So is Cleopatra dead, as the despondent servant lying at her feet would suggest? Or is there good news, as the smiling faces of the other women, some bearing fruits and flowers, might imply? What good news could there be? And who are these figures in the back trying to sneak into the queen's desert tent? Figures that are reminiscent of Alma Tadema's Antony and Cleopatra. We must, I think, leave some matters to our imagination. Now, Stratakis' work is not solely dedicated to the heritage of ancient Greece. These 4 paintings are some of my favorites of other genres, including a portrait of the world-renowned ballet dancer Rudolf Nureyev from 1996. I had to crop some of these paintings to make them fit on this slide, for which I apologize. You have to imagine that Nureyev also has legs in the original painting. Below that is the seascape entitled The Diver from 2016, and then in the upper right, a vista of Little Venice in gay-friendly Mykonos from 2017, and then a Nature Morte 2006, and all these 4 paintings are in private collections. These 4 celebrated ancient statues an astute observer may have recognized in Stratakis' works. that we have just seen, excuse me. The sculpture shown here, going from left to right, first depicts the so-called Apollo Sauroktonos. That literally means the lizard killer, but it's often mistranslated as the python slayer. Excuse me, Brittany, could you go back to the statues? Thank you. You see, of course, the lizards that he is about to grab or slap on the tree trunk. It is a Roman marble copy of a bronze work by Praxiteles dated to about 350-340 before the Common Era. The praying figure or adorant known as the praying boy, which is now in Berlin, has been attributed to Boidas or Thaisicrates, respectively the son or the grandson of Alexander the Great's court sculptor Lysippos. Note that the arms are early modern restorations, and therefore it is not at all clear if the original statue was actually praying or in some other attitude. Next, we see the Barberini found that you've seen in a painted version with all the details that I explained, and then the so-called Esquiline Venus that inspired Stratakis' Aphrodite of the Gardens. An odalisque is a chambermaid in a Turkish seraglio or women's quarters, but in art history, the term has acquired the meaning of concubine in an Oriental harem. These four paintings are obvious points of reference for Stratakis' second harem painting. Titian's reclining Venus of Urbino on the top left is considered the predecessor of the subsequent odalisque genre. That painting is in turn based on a similarly reclining sleeping Venus by Giorgione, or perhaps more or less by Titian himself. But by setting Venus of Urbino indoors, Titian has heightened the erotic, if not sexual tension of the nude female figure. Why is she indeed called Venus? Is she not simply a beautiful naked woman? Edouard Manet's Olympia, of course, took the explicitness a few steps farther. And both Jean-André Rixin on the upper right and Sir Lawrence Alma-Tadema imbued their imaginary historical paintings with a languishing erotic Orientalism. Both these paintings on the right are supposed to depict Cleopatra. At any rate, I doubt that I have to explain the connections with Stratakis' work in any more detail. But before I move on, this might be a good time to ask if there are any questions among the audience, and if so, please feel free to let us know as a comment or raise your hand so that I can address if there's any question at all. But if not, we can move on to the next section and turn our attention to the permanent collection of the TMA. The Tampa Museum, of course, has an excellent collection of Greek vases from the Josephine Noble collection and other collections that amply illustrate a wide-ranging array of themes, including those present in the works of Nikos Stratakis. So I would like to now show you some objects from the TMA's Antiquities collection that I believe could be paired very well with the paintings you have just seen. Here on this slide, for instance, some smaller bronze figurines of Greco-Roman and Etruscan deities that illustrate some of the same gods and goddesses that populate Stratakis' paintings. You see here a Venus, a Roman version of Aphrodite. She is about to slap Eros or Amor with her sandal. You see the Etruscan version of Apollo in the upper right, and another Etruscan bronze statuette of Hermes, who in Etruria was called Turns. These statuettes and many others in the collection also illustrate some of the poses and gestures that you find in ancient sculpture. the wonderful pseudo-Panathenaic vase with Athena Promachos portrays, of course, the patron goddess of Athens. She's fully dressed in her armor, ready to strike. The other side of the vase that we're not showing here depicts two jockeys competing in a horse. To be sure, of course, neither Athena herself nor horse races feature in the paintings by Stratakis that I've just shown you today. But still, this vase combines two themes that are reflected in the archaeological landscape paintings of Stratakis, the one of Athens and the other on Olympia. Now, we have, I feel, become almost desensitized about nudity in museums. But please remember that Aphrodite, the goddess of love and sexuality, marriage and fertility, was mostly depicted fully dressed on Greek vases, as you see here on the vase in the middle. Perhaps a slave woman, a porne, that is a woman selling her body for a living, or a hetaira, a high-class female companion, maybe a foreign woman or an Amazon could be represented in some state of undress. Certainly respectable women were not depicted naked in archaic or classical Greek art. Their modesty, their chastity, and their family's honor were at stake. It was not until the infamous Aphrodite of Knidos by the 4th century sculptor Praxiteles, whom we've already encountered, that a full-scale figure of any woman was portrayed nude in Greek art. That is to say, from its dawn, ancient Greek sculpture was actually dominated by male nudity. Male nudity that normalized and objectified the ideal of the athletic body of youthful men, while at the same time reinforcing the virtues of chastity, modesty, and domesticity for women. The sexualization and objectification of women's bodies as the result of Praxiteles' Cnidian Aphrodite may, however, also have offered at least some women a powerful image of female beauty and eroticism that was not allowed before. We have seen some athletic figures in Stratakis' paintings, a discus thrower, gladiators, and the TMA has a very nice selection of comparable objects that relate to this theme. No large-scale discus thrower, alas, but this lovely shirt on loan from a private collection, and also some nice illustrations of gladiators. These are only a small selection. The terrific Lekythos on the left, an oil flask, shows an ancient artist's impression of what demon inspires youthful athletes to run like there is no tomorrow. For these three nude men run as if their lives depend on it, chased by a winged female sphinx, whose body here is that of a horse rather than a lion. In the Roman Empire, by the way, gladiatorial combat became a popular form of entertainment, almost as popular as the Pan-Hellenic athletic competitions, except that gladiatorial games were, of course, more deadly. They were not only part and parcel of the bread and games entertainment to acquiesce the restless masses with brutal violence. The sweaty masculine bodies locked in combat also aroused erotic passion among both sexes, I should add. Gladiators were the superstars of imperial Rome, some of whom enjoyed careers of 10 or 15 years. An occasional fighter would even be able to retire and reach old age. But of course, the majority would not be so lucky, with some 400 arenas across the empire at its height and thousands of deaths per year. It is in the world of Dionysus, populated by nymphs and maenads, satyrs and other wild creatures, that we find another profound link between Stratakis' work and the Antiquities collection of the TMA. On this beautiful mixing vessel attributed to the Darius painter, I believe to recognize the god of wine himself, seated with a libation bowl in his hand, and a maenad stands before him with a young deer at her feet, and behind them a youthful satyr and a paniskos, that is, a small pan. The satyr is recognizable by his horse's tail, and the paniskos you can recognize by its goat's legs. The late 4th century Apulian artist known as the Darius painter, incidentally, is one of my personal favorites, to which I hope to be able to return in a future lecture. This beautiful paliki not only teasingly plays on the contrast between beastly nature and human culture, but also on those between male and female, nude and dressed. Such depictions of Dionysus' entourage, or Theassos in Greek, allow us to contemplate thoughts and feelings about male and female beauty, eroticism and sexuality, the contrast between the natural, beastly side of satyrs and nymphs, and civilized human culture, art and music. It hardly needs emphasizing that the gift of Dionysus, that is wine, is exactly the intoxicating potion causing Bacchic ecstatic frenzy that blurs the distinction between the constraints of civil society and the boundless natural abandon. This wonderful Lucanian mixing vessel is on loan from the Sawatsky collection and turns the Orientalist's obsession with odalisks on its head, as it portrays a reclining Dionysus, his chest bared in Oriental robes, emphasizing in this way his androgyny as well as his supposedly foreign origins. In Greek mythology and tragedy, Dionysus is commonly portrayed as an outsider, whose cold-faced initial resistance was soon adopted wholeheartedly by women, and then only reluctantly tolerated or perhaps even accepted by society at large. Such mythic or tragic stories remain vague or inconsistent about the god's true origin, either the Balkans or Asia Minor, or still farther east in India. Nevertheless, archaeologically, Dionysus is attested in Bronze Age Greece. We're talking about the 13th century before the Common Era. So foreign he was not. On this red figure bell crater shown here, a maenad dances in a state of oncoming ecstatic frenzy, which in Greek, by the way, is called enthousiasmos. The god holds a skyphos, or a skull-shaped wine cup in his hand. Behind him stands his pine cone staff, or thyrsos, and a basket filled with cakes is lying on the ground next to him. At his side also lies a tortoise lyre, and above hangs a large tambourine. Like wine, music, especially the rhythm of beating drums, is of course another means to induce ecstasy. Do let me know again if there are any questions, and if not, we can move on to the next section. Because as a third layer to this proposed exhibition, I would like to add sculpture from a major museum with a beautiful collection of relevant classicizing works of art dating from the Renaissance to Romanticism. I'm here suggesting a choice of masterpieces from the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, home of Rembrandt's famous Night Watch. I must emphasize, though, that we have not been in contact with anyone at that institution. What you see here in this preview is, in other words, still very, very hypothetical. You see here a Mercury or Hermes figure, probably an Artemis, that is Diana in Greek, and then to your right, an image that is called Sol, but of course Sol in Greek is Helios, and he was identified with Apollo. And the artists, for those of you who don't know every single artist in the world, Jean Goujon was a mid-16th century French mannerist who was a proponent of French classicism. Johann Gregor van der Schaert was a Dutch sculptor of the Northern Renaissance, working mostly in Austria, Germany, and Denmark. And then the wonderful Mercury statue on the left is an 18th century lead copy of the 16th century bronze by Giambologna, and this version is made for a private summer villa of the American banker Henry Hope for his house in Haarlem near Amsterdam, and is made by an Italian sculptor by the name of Francesco Righetti. Aphrodite, or Venus, as we've seen, she was known in Rome, has inspired artists since Praxiteles first portrayed the goddess nude. Classicizing examples are very easy to find. We see the Callippicus type, a type that emphasizes the eroticism of the goddess's exposed beautiful buttocks, after which the type is actually named. The Pudica type plays on the chastity of respectable women and the eroticizing, objectifying male gaze. The Uranian Venus on the right, of course, fails utterly to hide her nudity, actually draws more attention to it than she's able to cover, but it is still based on the Pudica type. The planet underneath her foot points to the goddess's celestial or Uranian quality as morning and evening star, and her epithet, Uranian, points to her father, Uranus, the primordial sky god. Next, a life-size statue of the discus thrower, which I'm sure you'll agree would pair marvelously with Stratakis' ancient Olympia painting. It is a cast made of a marble original by Mathieu Kessel, an early 19th century Dutch sculptor who was mainly active in Rome, Paris, St. Petersburg, and Brussels. Willem van Tetrode, whose work you see here in the middle, was a late 16th Dutch mannerist. The attribution of this striding warrior is based on the pose, with the muscular spread legs and the twisted torso, which was typical for van Tetrode. Who or what the statue is supposed to represent remains something of a mystery. I believe that I can see a Germanic or Celtic warrior in it. He is probably holding a sword, right, in his right hand, but the identity is not certain. The work on the right is by Francis van Bossart, an internationally recognized Flemish neoclassical artist, often working in ivory, such as is the case in this statue of Mars. The god of war is drawing his sword with a shield at his feet, and the statuette was created for the Cabinet of Art of Petronella de la Cour, the wife of a Dutch silk merchant, and it was once paired with a now lost statuette of Venus. So that already brings me to my conclusion, but before I wrap up this talk, again, if there are questions so far, I could address them, but if not, the main purpose of this exhibition proposal is to recontextualize the TMA's permanent collection. And I want to do that by juxtaposing a selection of mostly Greek antiquities with the work of contemporary Greek painter Nikos Stratakis, in conjunction with classicizing sculptural masterpieces of the Rijksmuseum, so as to offer the museum visitor fresh insight in the continued relevance and artistic inspiration of antiquity to the present day. Arranging for the exhibition to tour the Netherlands and Greece will, moreover, significantly elevate the profile of the Tampa Museum of Art for overseas communities. Public events, programs, and augmented reality applications could engage the visitor in a dialogue about the enduring inspiration of classical mythology and the nostalgic appeal of archaeological landscapes, the permanence of themes of human beauty, as well as aspects of gender, ethnic, and cultural identity. Actually, could you go back, Brittany, one slide? Thanks. Indeed, the exhibition could provoke discussions about the objectification of the human body or the whitewashing of cultural diversity, which you've seen, for instance, in the white marble and white ivory statues that often have no traces left of any pigments whatsoever. And therefore, the supposed supremacy of European culture, whether it is ancient or modern. Notice in this last respect the deliberate presence of Black African women surrounded by gleaming white female nudes in Stratakis' harem scenes, and his efforts to import themes of Orientalism into his classically inspired paintings. So the ancient world continues to inspire and educate us about art and religion, about cultural exchange and ethnic diversity, and many other subjects. The beautiful artifacts on display in the Tampa Museum of Art can thus teach us lessons that remain profoundly relevant today. So please continue to patronize the TMA, to wander around the museum and wonder about the ancient, modern and contemporary art on display. But if you are in the building, please keep your social distance for now. Feel connected in your own personal way with these objects. Create your own stories, ask your own questions, and feel free to contact us if you have questions. For now, I thank you for your attention. It has been a great pleasure to propose this exhibition concept to you. I do hope that we may meet each other soon in person. So if you have questions, there is ample time. 15 minutes even. I would personally be very interested to hear your thoughts about the feasibility of this proposal, if you would be interested in visiting this exhibition, and whether you have any suggestions for improvement.
Branko, thank you so much. That was wonderful. We do have a couple questions for you that have just popped into our chat. The first one is, how could you utilize modern technology such as augmented reality in this proposed exhibition?
Yes, I'm very happy that you asked this question, Ms. Stubbs. One of the ideas that popped up when I was talking to Nikos and his wife Pipi was that augmented reality, for instance, by creating a downloadable app on your mobile phone, could help sort of solve the puzzles on a painting like you see here. Like, who are these figures? Where did the inspiration come from? Why is there, I don't know, a peacock in this painting? How many animals can you spot in addition to the peacock? I mentioned that this painting incorporates at least 2 existing paintings. Why did the painter do that? What does it tell us about the meaning of this particular painting? All of that are questions that you can address through an augmented reality application that would be very hard to do with simple label texts in a museum. And so it will add to the experience, and it would explain why, for instance, we juxtapose certain objects, what we believe these connections are beyond the texts that we would show in the exhibition labels themselves.
Branko, the second question is, how often has Mr. Stratakis' work been paired with classical work in other museum shows?
Nikos, you want to unmute your microphone and answer that question yourself? Hi, Nikos. So the question that Penny and Sandy, you ask is, has your work ever been paired with classical works in museums?
Actually, it has never happened before. He has only exhibited his paintings only. well, like most of the painters in this world, this would be the first time.
Yes, so the idea is not to present a traditional retrospective of his work. It's also not a specific selection, a combination of different elements that we believe is something that has not happened before, and that not only helps to explain Nikos's paintings, but also helps to explain the objects in the TMA's collection. Joanna, can you?
Yes, we have a couple more questions that have popped through. Let's see. Just a comment from Dr. Bianchi, the very esteemed Dr. Bianchi. He mentions that we may have to rethink the choice of objects sculpted in ivory due to current international bans on that medium. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Branko?
Well, one of the problems indeed is with certain organic materials, and certainly objects from ivory, because they are from the tusks of elephants, is that they complicate touring exhibitions, or even prevent them from leaving the country. So this is something that we have certainly to take into consideration. My presentation was a hypothetical, was a cursory selection of what I came upon when I browsed the collection online in the Rijksmuseum. Of course, they don't have all their objects available online, and there will be many more in their collection that I am not familiar with. But when we get in contact with the museum, I am sure that we can, if we were to go ahead, if we were to get in contact with the museum, their curators would probably suggest us other objects. But thank you, Bob, for your thoughts.
Another art historical question for you, and maybe Nikos can also provide some content for us as well. Do you see any references to Jericho's death of Sardanapalus and Velázquez's Toilet of Venus, the dressing table, in the works?
Nikos, that is a real question for you. Were you inspired by Jericho or by Velázquez?
Yes, of course. I don't know if you mean Jericho or Delacroix, the death of Sardanapalus. And of course, this romantic, not exactly romantic, one hand Velázquez is for me one of the greatest painters, and of course Jericho. Yes, I'm influenced very much from them, two of them, too many, especially to the colors, all these warm colors, the death of Sardanapalus, of Jericho, because I've been inspired not only from the theme, but the way we are approaching the theme, the colors, together with all these themes and the story. This is the great problem with painting, to have a marriage, the drama with the color and shapes, the shapes. This is the great thing, not only the theme. Okay, of course, from the other hand, the contemporary art after has maybe don't pay attention to the drama, to the myth. It's better in form or in colors and this. The problem to the ancient painting and with contemporary art is to have the contemporary art, the modern art, to have the depth of the myth, because we had in elder times, maybe you can understand, like Tiziano or Velasquez or Giorgione. They have great myth behind
You
the
do that
color.
in your gladiator.
I'm trying to do this. So Géricault and Velasquez and their romantic and vibrato soul is very close to this, to the modern art, of course. They are two great, my idols, of course, with too many others
Right.
from the story of art.
And then oh,
Yes.
sorry. Branko and Nikos, can you comment on the scale or the size of the paintings? How big are they?
Some are fairly small. I provide
They are,
the measurements in centimeters, but some are like 3 meters in width. So that is, let me calculate quickly. That is 6-7 feet. So they vary.
And is Nikos, are you painting every day? Do you have a studio?
yes, yes. The funny thing is, funny. It's not funny. when I begin, I was a totally modern artist. I like clay and expressionism or American expressionism, you know. But and with all the seriously thing it is, because of course the art of painting is totally abstract. You know, we understand it, of course. Even you or older, it's no. The art is like music or all this is poetical geometry. If we put very correct, as Picasso said, it's the same. They are singing. They play music. It's not to be similar something or not. It's nothing. For these reasons, we began very expressionist. But when I saw first time a Rembrandt, the Jewish Bride, this, I shocked because I see that Rembrandt and all the old masters, we believe that they were approaching the theme very very in a stable way. It was a myth. They were they were very insecure. When we see the films of in one picture, we see all the changes they made. They didn't, and I believe that the way I was painting, I was approaching the picture was very academical. Even it was abstract, and finally, I find this way. Yes, I'm working every day. Yes, even
that also explains why you chose the musical opening that some of the people may have heard. Your passion is in your paintings. You wish to inject an emotional, passionate part of art that in the more abstract geometric paintings might get lost.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is this way.
Yes, this way.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
We can hear you very well.
I'm glad you're there.
We cannot hear you very well, Branko. Your microphone, I don't know. We heard half of it.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Diana, could you follow it on your end?
I could not actually. It broke up a bit.
Okay, then there must be something.
We can hear you. We can hear Mrs. Robotham very well, but not Branko.
I meant to say that what I know from Nico is that he's a very passionate man, and so you just like the music that you chose to open today's webinar. You want to bring these emotions into your paintings rather than painting abstract, which can lead to very geometric and perhaps emotionless or rational works of art.
Of course, now I can understand this, that painting and art is not from mind, but totally from heart. Really, I don't know if this organ can think, can imagine like the heart, but this is the way. And I can see it, I can see only with artists is of course mind and πώς λέγεται υπολογισμός και and to see, to put, to design every time, design, get it off and then destroy it and rebirth and it. But finally all this mud, yes, all this mud is rebirth, γεννάει το έργο. Gives birth to the final outcoming. And then there is a secure feeling that this is all the other things you made is mind things, academical, I don't know, but this in finally we can recognize that the thing that is from soul or something like this.
Thank you, Nikos. We need to start wrapping up. There, one more question just popped that you've mentioned some 20th century painters and earlier influences, and the question is whether these works would be in the exhibition. And I think that's a question that I would answer. My idea is to have paintings by Nikos Stratakis and then ancient artworks from the TMA collection, and to not bring in paintings physically into the exhibition. We might refer to these paintings in the text labels or in a publication that accompanies the exhibition. The works that I would like to bring in as a third level are all sculptures. They could go into the 20th century if we find something relevant that that connects well with Nikos' work or with the TMA collection of Antiquities. But I think it would be a disservice to Nikos' work if we bring in other people's paintings. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Galatz. And I think by now we should wrap up unless there are any other emergent or urgent questions. I would like to ask you to take the time to answer the survey, or if you have suggestions that you feel do not fit into that survey, to write Joanna or Brittany or someone else at the museum to let us know what you think. If you think we should go ahead and move forward on this, or if you have any other thoughts or ideas, yeah, I would be happy to hear what your feelings are.
Thank you so much, Branko. And thank you, Mr. Stratakis and Mrs. Stratakis. It's been a pleasure to have this wonderful global dialogue today. I hope everybody gets, Nikos and Branko, hope you both get some good sleep. I know it's in the evening now. Thank you again, Branko, for your really enlightening talk on Nikos' work. And I think we all feel delighted to now be introduced to Nikos' paintings and hope we can have a chance to see them in Tampa sometime soon. For those of you who are in our audience, mark your calendars for October 15th. I'm sorry, Sunday, October 18th for Branko's next lecture on the Noble Collection of Attic Vases, which if you are familiar with the collection, you know that the Noble Collection really anchored the permanent collection at TMA. And with that, why don't we all sign off and everybody have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you all soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Nikos.